The first step into the Empire, the Galactic Empire had seen many new species join its ranks. Some came begging for protection. Others came boasting of their power. But none had ever arrived like the humans did. It began with a quiet accident. Deep space wormhole, unstable and uncharted, opened near the outer edges of Imperial space. Out of it drifted a single vessel, sleek, silver-gray, marked with strange blue symbols. It did not match any known starship in the Imperial database. The Imperial patrol ship Velour moved in quickly, scanning for weapons. The report came back. Unsettling. No active shields, no visible weapons. Crew life signs stable. And they're just sitting there. When the humans replied to the Empire's hail, their voices were calm. Too calm. This is the United Earth ship Pathfinder. We seek peaceful contact. No panic, no confusion. No pleading for help. Just clear, even words. Within a day, the Pathfinder was escorted to the Imperial capital system Viralia Prime, a world of shimmering towers and endless alien traffic. The Imperial docking bay was full of curious eyes as the human ship landed. Delegates from dozens of species came to watch the newcomers. They expected fear. They expected hesitation. Instead, the human delegation walked down the ramp with steady steps and relaxed faces. Their leader, Ambassador Daniel Reeve, wore a simple, dark suit, not ceremonial armor, not elaborate robes. He glanced around as though inspecting the air itself, then nodded politely to the guards. The first whispers spread through the crowd. Why aren't they afraid? They don't even look impressed. Do they not understand where they are? Inside the grand hall of arrival, the human delegation was met by Lord Vaynor, a tall, insectoid imperial official with glimmering wings. On behalf of the Galactic Empire, Vaynor began in a proud, formal tone. I welcome you. Understand that you are guests here, and you will obey our laws without question. Ambassador Reeve simply smiled. We obey laws where they are just, he said softly. The translator drones repeated his words in dozens of languages. A murmur rolled through the hall. Already, the humans were not speaking like supplicants. The next hours were full of introductions. Alien leaders made small jabs, subtle insults meant to test the humans' pride. But every time, Reeve and his team listened politely, nodded, and answered in ways that gave nothing away. A reptilian merchant lord leaned close and said, Your kind must be fragile, yes? No claws, no scales, soft skin. Reeve looked at him. Calmly, soft things bend before they break. The merchant lord didn't speak again. Meanwhile, Imperial intelligence had begun investigating the Pathfinder. Their agents tried to hack into the ship's data core, expecting to find it unguarded. Instead, their systems crashed instantly, locked behind layers of encryption far beyond Imperial standards. An officer reported to Vaynor. It's like trying to open a door, only to realize the door was never really there. Later that evening, the human delegation was invited to a ceremonial dinner, a chance for the Empire to show its wealth and power. Alien nobles displayed exotic dishes, each meant to impress. Some dishes were dangerous to weaker species. The humans took everything in stride, tasting food cautiously, but never showing discomfort. When one dish caused a minor allergic reaction, in a human guard, he simply drank water, smiled, and continued eating. Not worth my time to complain, the guard said when asked. The alien nobles didn't know whether to feel insulted or unnerved. By the end of the night, something had shifted. In the air, the humans had not raised their voices once. They had not shown fear or awe. And yet, in their calm, there was a quiet weight, like they were already taking the measure of the Empire. In a shadowed balcony above the hall, 2 Imperial officers spoke in hushed voices. They're not like the others, one said. No, the other replied. Most species try to impress us. These humans, they're studying us. Back on the Pathfinder, Ambassador Reeves stood in the observation lounge, looking down at the glittering city lights of Virilia Prime. His second-in-command approached. They tried to intimidate us, she said. Didn't work. Reeves' eyes stayed on the city. The loudest in the room are often the weakest. Let them think we are harmless. It will make things easier when the truth comes. In the Imperial Council chamber, Lord Vaynor sent a message to the Emperor himself. They are calm. Too calm, I advise caution. And so, the first day of humanity in the Galactic Empire ended not with cheers, not with fear, but with a quiet question whispered in the hearts of alien leaders. What kind of people walk into the Empire without fear? The calm before the shock. The Imperial capital had a way of testing newcomers. Every species that entered the Empire faced the same thing: small, carefully planned insults to see how easily they could be shaken. For the humans, those tests began the very next day. The Imperial Assembly Hall was a place of power. Tall windows, let in the light of Virilia Prime's twin suns. Rows of alien delegates sat in a perfect half-circle, their clothes and armor flashing with wealth and pride. The humans entered quietly. No grand entrance, no bowing, no show of strength, just steady footsteps. Ambassador Daniel Reeve stood at the center as the assembly speaker. A broad-shouldered reptilian with golden eyes began the questioning. Humanity, the speaker said, in a slow, sharp tone, comes from a single planet, yes? One world, one small sun. You have no empire, no colonies beyond your home system. Why should we treat you as equals? Every eye turned to Reeve. This was a trap. Most newcomers stumbled, here begging for respect or making wild promises. Reeve didn't move for a moment. Then he smiled faintly. You asked why you should treat us as equals, he said. You don't have to. Respect isn't given, it's earned, and we are patient. The translation rippled across the chamber. A low murmur followed. Some delegates frowned. Others leaned forward, curious. The questions grew sharper. A tall, thin insectoid tapped its claws on the table. What defenses does Earth have? What would you do if an Imperial fleet arrived uninvited? Reeve tilted his head slightly. We'd offer them tea, and then we'd ask why they came. The answer seemed harmless, until the insectoid noticed Reeve's eyes steady, measuring, as if he was already imagining that exact scenario. Outside the hall, the tests became more personal. In the market district, a human security officer named Cole walked with 2 alien escorts. A massive horned soldier from the Vecna Guard stepped in his way, blocking the path. You are soft, the Vecna growled, looking Cole up and down. I could crush you with one hand. Cole looked at him for 2 seconds, expression unreadable. Then he stepped to the side without a word, walking past as if the Vecna wasn't worth noticing. The alien guards exchanged confused glances. The lack of reaction stung more than any insult could. Meanwhile, Imperial intelligence officers were still trying to break into the Pathfinder systems. Every attempt ended the same way: complete lockout, sometimes followed by subtle data wipes on their own terminals. One frustrated technician muttered, "It's like they know we're coming before we even start." That evening, the humans attended a formal reception at the Emperor's Sky Palace. It was designed to overwhelm walls of crystal, rivers of light flowing through the floors, rare foods from every corner of the Empire. Most new species would be dazzled. The humans simply observed. They asked polite questions about trade, travel routes, and historical treaties. They never once mentioned their own technology or resources. To the Empire's elite, this was strange. To their spies, it was worrying. During the reception, a minor noble approached Reeve with a sly smile. You hide your numbers well. Ambassador, the noble said. Tell me, how many ships does Earth have? Reeve sipped his drink, set it down, and replied, "Enough to get where we need to go." The noble blinked. "And how many worlds do you control?" "Enough to know which ones matter." It wasn't an answer, but somehow it was worse than a direct threat. Later that night, Reeve walked with his second-in-command along a balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons reflected off the glass towers. "They think we're hiding something," she said. "We are," Reeve replied. "And if they push harder?" He smiled. "Then they'll find out why we're so calm." Far below, in the crowded streets, rumors were already spreading. The humans don't flinch. They never raise their voices. I heard they walked past a vector guard without, looking afraid. They smile like they know something we don't. Inside the Imperial Council's private chambers, Speaker Vayner met with a group of senior officials. "They should have been unsettled by now," one said. "They are hiding their power," another replied. "They are planning something," Vayner concluded. They all agreed on one thing. The humans would need a real test, something bigger, riskier, and far away from the safe halls of diplomacy. In that moment, the seeds of the Empire's mistake began to grow. Testing the newcomers, the Imperial Council met in private chambers, their voices low but sharp. The humans had passed every small test so far. They had not been provoked. They had not been flustered. And that was making the Empire uneasy. "They are hiding something," said Councillor Drevin, a tall, scale-armored aristocrat. "We must see what happens when they are truly tested." The plan came quickly. A remote border colony, Varro 6, had been failing for years. It was poor, dangerous, and plagued by pirate raids. The Empire had tried to fix it, sending soldiers, supplies, even engineers, but nothing worked. The locals hated imperial rule, and the surrounding space was lawless. So the Empire made a decision. Give Varro 6 to the humans. Officially, it was a gesture of trust and opportunity. Unofficially, it was meant to break them. No new species had ever survived running such a colony. When Ambassador Daniel Reeve received the assignment, his second-in-command frowned. "They want us to fail," she said. "Good," Reeve replied. "It'll make the success more interesting." The journey to Varro 6 took 8 days by Imperial transport. The human team arrived in a dusty, windswept spaceport. The buildings were cracked, half the lights didn't work, and the streets were littered with scraps of metal. Local residents, thin, tired aliens with dull eyes, watched the humans warily. They had seen Imperial governors come and go, each promising change, but leaving the place worse than before. On the first day, the humans didn't give speeches. They didn't make promises. Instead, they walked the streets, asked questions, and listened. They learned that the water purification system had been broken for a year, that the only medical center had no working surgical equipment, that pirate raids came twice a month, and the local militia was too afraid to fight. By nightfall, the humans already had a plan. Within a week, they had repaired the water system using improvised tools and old parts salvaged from abandoned ships. By the second week, the medical center was running again, staffed by volunteer human medics. And when the pirates came on the third week, the humans didn't hide behind walls. They met the raiders in open space. The pirate captain, confident after years of easy raids, was shocked to see 3 human ships waiting. Not Imperial patrol craft human vessels, smaller and older looking, but fast. The battle lasted 6 minutes. The pirates' engines were shot out one by one, their weapons disabled, with precise hits. No debris, no chaos, just clean, controlled strikes. The humans boarded the pirate flagship, arrested the crew, and returned them to the colony square for trial. Word spread fast. "The humans don't run," the locals said. "They don't waste words. They fix things. They fight like they've done this 1,000 times." By the end of the month, Varro 6 was no longer the poorest world in the sector. Trade ships were docking again, markets reopened, and children played in streets that had once been empty. Back in the imperial capital, the council received the first reports. Councillor Drevin read them twice, his jaw tightening. They've done more in 1 month than we did in 10 years. Then perhaps we should take Varro 6 back, another councillor suggested. Drevin shook his head. No, taking it back now would make us look weak. We must wait. And watch. On Varro 6, Ambassador Reeve stood at the repaired spaceport, speaking quietly to his officers. They thought this was a punishment, he said. But now it's proof. Proof of what? One asked. Reeve's eyes scanned the horizon. That calm is not weakness. It's control. And control is power. High above the colony, a cloaked Imperial surveillance drone recorded the scene and transmitted it back to Veralia Prime. In the council chamber, Speaker Vayner watched the humans on the screen. They are building loyalty, Vayner said slowly. The locals see them as protectors. If this continues, we may face more than just a new member species. And what is that? An aide asked, a rival. For now, the Empire stayed silent. But behind closed doors, the Emperor had given a single order: push them harder. See where their calm breaks. They didn't know yet that this decision would be the start of the Empire's undoing. The Empire starts to worry. It had been 3 months since the humans took control of Varro 6. In that time, the once-forgotten world had become something the Empire couldn't ignore. Trade routes were active. Pirate attacks had stopped. Crime had dropped to near zero. And the strangest thing of all, the locals were happy. In the Imperial Council chamber, Speaker Vayner read the latest reports with a frown. They've turned a failing colony into a model world in 90 days. He said. Councillor Drevin slammed his claws on the table. It's more than that. The neighboring systems are asking for human advisors. Do you understand? Our citizens are requesting them instead of Imperial officials. The room filled with uneasy murmurs. The Council had never seen a new species rise so quickly and with so much influence. What worried the Empire most wasn't the humans' technology or their ships. It was their calm. They didn't shout. They didn't threaten. They didn't flaunt their power. They simply worked and got results no one else could match. The Council began to see the danger. Calm that hides capability is the most dangerous kind of power. One evening, the Empire decided to test that calm in a darker way. The streets of Varro 6 were quiet when the assassin arrived. He was a tall, thin reptilian mercenary, known for never failing a contract. His orders were simple: kill Ambassador Daniel Reeve and make it look like a local dispute. He followed Reeve through the market district, past food stalls and traders. The moment came Reeve was alone, leaning over a merchant's table, examining a map. The assassin moved in, silent as shadow. He never made it. A hand gripped his wrist before the blade could strike. Another arm locked around his neck. He was pulled into the alley and disarmed in less than 3 seconds. The man holding him wasn't even Reeve's bodyguard. It was one of the human engineers, dressed in work clothes. The assassin froze as the human whispered in his ear, "Walk away. You live. Try again. And you don't." The assassin was released unharmed, but shaken to his core. He returned to his employers empty-handed. When the Imperial Council heard what happened, they were stunned. The humans hadn't turned the assassin over for questioning. They hadn't made a public scene. They had simply handled it. Ambassador. Reeve was asked about the incident later. "It was nothing," he said with a faint smile. "We prefer to solve problems before they become public." To the Empire, that answer was more unsettling than any threat. Meanwhile, the human influence kept spreading. Merchants spoke of safe trade routes patrolled by human ships. Border worlds told stories of disputes resolved in days instead of years. Even Imperial officers began to quietly admire their efficiency. In taverns and markets, a phrase started to circulate among alien civilians. If the humans are calm, you're safe. If the humans are silent, run. Back on Viralia Prime, Speaker Vaynor met privately with the Emperor. They are changing the way our citizens see us, Vaynor warned. They inspire trust where we inspire fear. The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. Then perhaps we should remind them who rules this galaxy. And if they do not react? Vaynor asked. And we will keep pushing until they do, the Emperor said. Everyone breaks eventually. On Vero 6, we've received a coded message from Earth Command. We are aware of increased Imperial hostility. Continue operations. Do not engage unless necessary. The fleet is watching. He closed the message and smiled faintly. The Empire didn't know it yet, but they were walking straight into humanity's game, not far above the planet. In the cold silence of space, a cloaked human cruiser drifted unseen. Its crew monitored Imperial channels, tracking every movement in the sector. They weren't there for show. They were there for the moment the calm ended. The calm turns to power for months. The humans had been the same calm, measured, and patient. They fixed what was broken, protected those under their care, and avoided unnecessary fights. The Empire thought they understood this pattern. They thought it meant humans feared open conflict. They were wrong. It started with a border war between two Imperial factions, House Dreven and House V'Lor. The two noble families had been rivals for generations, fighting over trade routes and mining rights. Normally, the Council stepped in to mediate, but this time the fighting spread too quickly. One of the contested systems was close to Varo 6. That meant human supply ships were suddenly flying through a war zone. Ambassador Daniel Reeve received the first reports in the middle of the night. A human transport was stopped by V'Lor ships, his aide said. They searched it without cause. The crew is safe, but they took the cargo. Reeve's expression stayed neutral. Was it military cargo? No, medical supplies for the outlying colonies. Reeve stood up. Get me V'Lor command, now. Hours later, the V'Lor faction replied with an almost mocking tone. This is Imperial space, their commander said over the comm. We have the right to search any vessel we deem suspicious. Then you've declared war on us, Reeve said calmly. The V'Lor commander laughed. On you? You're a minor protectorate. You wouldn't dare. The comm line cut out. The next day, human warships arrived in the disputed system. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't send warnings. They simply appeared, black-armored destroyers and cruisers, emerging from warp with the precision of a blade. The V'Lor fleet moved to intercept. They expected a standoff, maybe a few warning shots. Instead, they were hit before they could lock. Weapons. Human railguns fired with surgical accuracy, disabling engines and weapon systems without destroying the ships. Drones swarmed, cutting communications and boarding key vessels. In less than 10 minutes. The V'Lor fleet was dead in space, every ship intact, but completely helpless. The most shocking part wasn't the speed. It was the silence. No shouting. Overcomes, no victory speeches. Just the sound of systems powering down and human crews moving with absolute precision. When the last V'Lor ship was boarded, Reeve's voice finally came over the comms. This sector is now closed to all hostile forces. If you value your people, stay out. News of the incident spread like wildfire. Merchants called it the silent strike. Border worlds whispered that humans could disarm fleets without spilling a drop of blood. Imperial commanders began quietly advising their crews to avoid human patrol zones. In the Imperial capital, the council was divided. They acted without permission. One delegate shouted, "They stopped a war in less than an hour." Another replied, Can you do that? The Emperor's eyes narrowed. They grow too bold. Back on Vero 6, Reeve met with his senior officers. You realize the Empire will retaliate, one said. They'll try, Reeve replied. But they'll think twice before firing on us again. What if they push harder? Reeve's gaze was steady. Then we stopped being calm. In the weeks that followed, the border systems saw something unusual peace. Both Dreven and Velar fleets stayed away from human trade routes. The locals began openly praising the humans, efficiency and fairness. The Empire had hoped the border war would test humanity's patience. Instead, it revealed something the galaxy hadn't seen before. Calm was their shield. Power was their sword. And they knew exactly when to use each. Somewhere deep in Imperial space, Speaker Vaynor sent a private message to the Emperor. We must tread carefully. The humans are not like the others. When they act to end things. That makes them dangerous. The Emperor replied with only 3 words. Then make them act. The Emperor demands an answer. The summons arrived in the middle of the night cycle. An Imperial courier ship landed at Vero 6, carrying a sealed order from the Emperor himself. Ambassador Daniel Reeve was to appear in the Imperial throne. Hall on Viralia Prime Dash immediately. No explanations. No negotiation. Just a command. The throne hall was the largest chamber in the Empire. A ceiling of black crystal arched high above, reflecting the light of the twin suns. The floor was polished to a mirror's shine. At the far end, upon a throne of gold and obsidian, sat the Emperor, a towering figure with eyes like molten metal. The hall was filled with delegates, nobles, and military leaders. They had come to see this rare event. A new species standing before the Emperor. Reeve walked down the long aisle without hesitation. He wore the same simple black suit he had worn on his first day in the Empire. His steps were steady, his expression calm. The Emperor's voice boomed across the hall. Human, he said, not bothering with titles. You come into my empire, take control of my worlds, and interfere in my wars. Explain yourself. Reeve stopped at the base of the throne steps. We did what was necessary, he said. We protected our people. We ended a war that spilled into our space. The Emperor leaned forward. And why do you think you can act without my permission? The hall grew tense. Delegates leaned in. Many expected Reeve to apologize or make excuses. Instead, his answer was simple. Because we do not ask permission to defend ourselves. A low murmur rolled through the crowd. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You are calm, he said. Too calm. Even now, standing in my hall, surrounded by my guards, you do not tremble. Why? Reeve's voice stayed level. Because panic solves nothing. And fear is a weapon. We choose when to use it. The Emperor straightened in his throne. And if I told you the full might of the Imperial fleet could crush your kind in a single day? Reeve didn't flinch. Then I would tell you that you've miscalculated. A gesture from Reeve, and a small device on his wrist lit up. All around the hall, the air shimmered. Holographic projections appeared, images of the Empire's most important systems. Shipyards, supply depots, fuel lines. Each one had a small blue icon beside it, the mark of a human fleet stationed nearby. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even the Emperor's eyes widened slightly. Reeve's voice carried clearly. In the years since we arrived, we have mapped every one of your fleet movements, every supply route, every hidden base. We could cripple your navy without ever setting foot in your capital. And yet, we have not. We choose peace. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. You came here by accident, he said slowly. Yet you have acted as though you belong. Among the great powers. Reeve met his gaze. We don't belong because we're strong. We belong because we know when not to use that strength. The hall was still. The Emperor's fingers tapped once on the armrest of his throne. Leave, he said finally. For now, Reeve inclined his head. As you wish. As the humans departed, the hall erupted in whispers. They have fleets in our space. They could destroy us, and they don't. This is not weakness. This is control. In a shadowed balcony above, Speaker Vayner watched the humans leave. They've shown their hand. An aide whispered. Vayner shook his head. No, they've shown us just enough to make us wonder what we haven't seen. Back aboard the Pathfinder, Reeve stood at the observation window, watching Veralia Prime fade into the distance. His second-in-command joined him. You think the Emperor believed you? Reeve's lips curved into the faintest smile. I think he's going to spend every waking moment wondering if we're telling the truth. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor sat alone in the throne hall long after the crowd had gone. His mind replayed the images, the calm voice, the unshaken confidence. For the first time in decades, he felt something he could not name God. It might have been respect. It might have been fear. The legend takes root years later. The events of that first human year in the Galactic Empire had become part of the galaxy's living memory. But they weren't called the human arrival or the first contact. Everyone simply called it the calm. On the trade world of Zoroth Prime, old merchants told the story to young apprentices over steaming cups of spice tea. They came out of nowhere, one would say, leaning closer. No fleet, no allies, just one ship. And yet they walked into the Empire like they'd always belonged. And they were calm? The apprentice would ask. Calm like deep water, the merchant replied. And that's the kind of calm you never want to disturb. In the academies of the Imperial Navy, cadets studied the calm doctrine, an entire course built around human strategy. They analyzed recordings of the Silent Strike, the Varos 6 turnaround, and the throne hall confrontation with the Emperor. The instructors would always end the lesson with the same warning. If humans are calm, you are safe. If humans are silent, you are already too late. Varos 6, once a failing colony, had become a thriving hub of trade and culture. Its markets bustled, its docks were busy day and night, and its people, alien and human alike, spoke proudly of their new reputation as the world humans saved. In the colony square stood a statue of Ambassador Daniel Reeve, not in armor, not holding a weapon, just standing, hands folded behind his back, a faint smile on his face. The inscription beneath read, "Strength is not in noise. It is in knowing when to use it." In the imperial capital, things had changed too. The Emperor still ruled, but he ruled with a sharper awareness of the balance of power. His fleets no longer approached human space without clearance. His ministers avoided unnecessary provocations. That it wasn't because they feared defeat in battle. It was because they feared the quiet way humans prepared for one. On Earth, the Pathfinder was now a symbol of first contact. School children toured its decks, hearing how their people had walked into the largest empire in the galaxy and made it take notice without firing a single shot until it was necessary. Reeve himself had retired. But when asked about those early days, he always said the same thing. We didn't go to the Empire to conquer. We went to show that calm can be a weapon. And the best part? They still don't know how much we were holding back. In the shadowed corners of the galaxy, smugglers and pirates passed along their own version of the legend. They don't start fights, one captain would say in a smoky cantina. But if you push them, he'd take a slow drink, then add, you won't even see them coming. Back on Varos 6, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold and red. A new generation of human and alien children played in the open square, their laughter echoing between the buildings. That one young alien pointed to the statue of Reeve. Why is he smiling? She asked her mother. Her mother looked toward the horizon. Because he knew something the whole empire learned the hard way. What's that? That one calm step can change the whole galaxy. And so, the story of humanity in the empire lived on not just in history books, but in whispers, lessons, and warnings. It was told in markets and military briefings, in schools and on distant stations. It was a story about ships, diplomacy, and battles. But most of all, it was about the dangerous, unshakable calm of a people who had nothing to prove until you gave them a reason. One mistake against humanity could start a war. But 1 year of their calm could change the stars forever. End of Part 7.